I am about to record a video with Brian about where I'm at with this Twitch Final Fantasy collaboration, and I wanted to talk about it. I recorded a post today that I probably will never publish about focusing on the good of the event, and I think there's a lot to be done there, but I've been on an emotional roller coaster since I stopped going live. When I streamed today, I didn't know this event was going on, and it got announced while I was on stream, and as people flowed into my stream to tell me how many subscriptions other creators were getting, to tell me how many other creators were included and who was included, I really didn't have the ability to process. I was in the middle of my workday, and so I continued to stream, and I didn't really get a chance to think about how I feel about it and what it means. It wasn't something I was ready to process. However, when the day ended and I started telling Brian, as I look at the list, there's a lot of good names not on this list. We're not in bad company not being included. I noticed that the longer we talked, the more I moved from politely processing it to a little bit of frustration. And then that slowly moved into a lot of frustration. I have been covering this game for 5 years. Brian and I combined have published well over 2,000 posts on Final Fantasy XIV. We both have thousands of hours played. We have links in all of our posts that have generated thousands of people going and trying the free trial that we don't get compensated for. We make posts on Final Fantasy XIV the vast majority of the 7 days of the week. I stream Final Fantasy XIV the majority of my stream schedule, as I stream 30 to 40 hours a week. And when Brian adds his streams on top, when he's able, we go even higher than that. We've been invited to the media tour. For FanFest, we were sent shirts and salt and pepper shakers. When we got to FanFest last time, we were upgraded from the passes that we bought to media passes so that we could sit with other creators. In many ways, I feel to be a member of this community that people are aware of. Many who come in and thank us for things like controller guides or our opinion on something or answering questions. We try to be more responsive in comments than most have time for. We have been thanked by many. And when I wonder about total impact, it's not just the ones that like us. We have people who this very week there's been a circulating video where it feels like a pretty decent chunk of it was meant to mock the things that are an inside joke among all these people that feel that they don't know what about Brian and I's content is very memeable. And they laugh. I mean, my own wife thinks that I talk too much. It's not, when she married me. So it's not something, it's not new. It doesn't only happen on camera. And so to not be included feels very frustrating. But as I tried to process it, I looked at the people that weren't included. I looked at the people that were, and there's brilliant creators on both sides. If you had to pick a list that short, it was never going to include all of the good ones. I think if anything, the list is actually too big to defend because you end up in a position where it focuses more on, well, if this many could fit, you must be saying everybody below that line is not good enough, as opposed to if they'd said, we can really only partner with 3 or 4, we would have been like, well, that's not even close. Nobody thinks that's it. But it does kind of send a message that's not good enough. And I see people in these threads saying, well, they didn't pick creators that show ACT on stream. I don't know that that's true. I think there's ones on that list that do. Well, they didn't pick creators that better represent diversity, especially during Pride Month, when there is a heavy emphasis, more than any other time through the year, which we should always be doing, on listening to viewpoints other than our own, on listening to people who have different life experiences, people who maybe feel that their voices have not been heard or that they have not felt comfortable making those voices heard. Being a place that can focus on love and acceptance of who others are, even if they're not like us, especially if they're not like us. But when I look at making lists that are drawn up that way, that doesn't include them either. When I look at lists that are based on stats, viewership on Twitch, how long they've been partnered, average view numbers, number of days a week they play 14, number of times they criticize 14, where they are on other platforms as far as Twitter and YouTube. When I look at relationships through past events and past giveaways, outside of the biggest ones, I don't see a correlation there either. I don't know of a single way to cut a slice of everybody who's playing Final Fantasy XIV during an incredible year to play Final Fantasy XIV. This event came to my attention just after I finished reading the script for an upcoming post I'm working on that is a love letter to Final Fantasy XIV. It is an incredible time to be playing this game. New, returning, veteran, all are welcome. It's an incredible time to be in 14. And this list, it could have never caught them all. I think if anything, this list has reminded us just how big and diverse this community is. It often feels like I wish there were more creators, but when you look at people naming 2 or 3 or 10 or however many creators they don't feel are on the list, there's a lot of good ones of all sizes, shapes, sincerity, how often they talk about it, what they post on, how they post. There is a very, very diverse group of people not included. And so I got mad. And Brian let me yell at him for a while. And then my wife came in to ask me about this, and I told it all over again, much calmer. I'd let the steam off, not realizing how much it upset me. And then I just stayed in my workday. I just stayed in my lane, finished the day, finished strong. And as I told my wife, I don't want this to be the 4th time, I ended up realizing that while it shouldn't matter, logically, I had been included more than most, and logically, I'm in a really good spot, and by objective measures, I'm doing well, and internally, I believe that I'm doing well. I believe I'm good at my job. I believe I'm good at making content. I believe that I'm good at this. I believe there's a lot of ways I could get better, but I believe I'm good. And I'm aiming for improvement, and I'm chasing people who both are and are not on that list as people that inspire me. I didn't realize how much being left out of a group this large would hit me. I didn't realize that not being included would make me question why I even do this. Why I dedicated myself full-time to a career I never knew I wanted, because most of my time is spent in a community that has made me feel that making more content in this community would be worth the risk. I don't talk about money. I don't talk about the numbers on stream very often. But if you add to date the last 5 years that Brian and I have put into Final Fantasy content across all 67 channels in all 22-minute or longer minute videos, everything we've made off of sponsors, everything we've spent on the game out of our own money, by any metric, you add this stuff up. If you for some reason count our subscription money as a profit, which is a weird way of adding up money that leaves my account and goes to Square Enix, all of that money combined adds to less than I have made waiting tables or working at a bar in an annual year. It adds to less than a single paycheck that I have made when I'm in sales. I came from sales. I don't do this for that. Yes, to pay for my mortgage, to keep my lights on. If my AC breaks, I'll need to fix it. When I need food, I have to buy it. Yes, I needed the money to be enough to live on. Thankfully, my wife and I have set aside enough of that money over the years, and we've paid off debts to put myself in a position where, with her working, we could take the leap that I can do this full time. And so yes, finances is a contributing factor. But I am in a position where I have not yet made a video that I feel I have to make. I have not yet published a video I did not feel I should publish. I have published videos I wish were better. And I've debated publishing them, and I've decided, due to editorial choices, what gets published and what does not. Even my post about Bellular, where I felt I was unfair and put that in the description, I published it anyway because it was part of a series. I filmed it live, and I wasn't going to hide it. And I took the criticism. Now, when people were outlandishly mean, I couldn't read 27 paragraphs of somebody being hateful. But when there was valid criticism, stuff that the YouTube filter didn't grab because it was fair and it was respectful, I read that and engaged with it. I didn't realize how hard this would, for some reason, cause me to reflect on myself as a creator in a way that when I woke up this morning wasn't there. And I don't think that was the intent of this list. I don't think that was the reason that this was done like this. And so when I look at people just getting into content creation or other big creators that do this, I look at this and I hope that, especially when we talk about diversity during a month where it's not about me. I think that there's a lot of voices that feel unheard, and whether or not it's the intention, the feelings are very, very real. When I look at people that represent this community positively, they don't criticize it. Like when I point out areas I wish the game was better, that have more inclusive communities across more diverse backgrounds, that play the game regularly to larger audiences or smaller audiences. I don't see a single way by which this should make them hurt, but I don't see how they don't. And so I reached out to a lot of people, and a handful of them I've gotten a chance to talk with and discuss their feelings. I'm not going to reveal their backgrounds or anything they've told me in confidence. And some of them I reached out to because they have industry knowledge, how companies like Square Enix work, how companies like Twitch works, how events like this, large or small, roll out, and how they choose who makes the cut and who does not. And without going into industry specifics, it helped me understand. It helped me think of an action plan. When I look at a 5-year career plan, yes, I want to be better tomorrow and next year at a year, 5 years from now than I am today. And if there are things that I'm not doing well and they're not against my ethics or moral compass, I would like to improve at them. I would like to get better at them. I would like to be good at my job. It started as a hobby that I wanted to be good at, and it's turned into something where I only want to be even better at it. And it's helped me. And so I hope that with many of those people, those discussions, and as that goes, understanding more how these things get determined is a part of that. But I don't think that this event was meant to be exclusive. I don't think this was meant to reveal publicly some blacklist of creators. I think it was the goal of giving people a starting point. But instead of this being $100 or a $500 sponsorship that results in 100 views during a single stream, it's a 2-month-long event that will likely generate hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue. And to split it off across a small group of people, when it's views, it's engagement, it's public validation, and it's money, no matter what things in what order motivate a creator, it doesn't feel good to be left out. So what do? Where are we at? Well, first of all, for the people on the list, I don't see anybody on there that shouldn't be on there. I don't see anybody then on there that we should remove. There are creators that are smaller than others. There are creators that are larger than others. There are creators with different years of experience and different Final Fantasy involvement. Go support those creators. Try a couple. You don't have to buy it on the first day. This event goes through August 24th. And should one of those be somebody you enjoy and you want to say thank you to, drop 4 subs and get you a big black bird. It is one of my favorite mounts in Mount Roulette. It's a cool event. Go support those people. It's a wonderful idea. The idea that Final Fantasy wants to thank its content creators by giving away a mount, partnering with a content platform that they historically have underperformed in for the size of the game, it's a wonderful thing. Execution is where we have the issue, and I spent a 6-hour stream today discussing 14 versus mostly WoW and bragging on how much 14 typically does execution just better. Doesn't mean perfect. But what do we do for all the ones not included? All the people who say, well, I would be more okay with this list if it just included, insert any size list you want afterwards. People that came to mind the moment you heard this. People that you felt hurt enough to go out and reply to that tweet on Final Fantasy's Twitter. People that you felt you wanted to go out and say, I will not be engaging because of this, or I am frustrated because of this, or I wish this had been handled differently. Once you've come to grips with that, this is a wonderful chance to build some of the communities within 14. All you have to do to support those other people, all you have to do to make content creation worth it, well, yes, 4 gifted subs is wonderful. Go tell them thank you. Go say that you appreciate the impact they've had on your lives. And this is not limited to content creators. Go thank the mods in your Discord or in a Reddit community. Go thank somebody that you've run dailies with, somebody you've met through this game, somebody that has allowed this recreational part of your life to mean more than it needed to. to mean more to you than you thought it could. A friend that got you in, go say thank you. It doesn't matter if it's only one person that comes to mind. It doesn't matter if it's 30. It doesn't matter if you reach out to them publicly or in a private DM, in their comments section on stream. It doesn't have to be money. Just go say thank you. This has reminded me that I do an incredibly poor job of thanking those in my life that shape the positive moments in my life. This is a reminder of how diverse the communities that I'm a part of are, both in 14 and otherwise. It is incredibly frustrating that it feels like they missed the mark on something that was meant to be positive and beautiful. And maybe they'll add more creators down the line. Maybe they'll do this with different mounts or different ways. Or maybe they'll come out and say, this is our criteria, and that helps you understand. Or maybe they won't do anything. But on its own, this giveaway is not a bad thing. On its own, Final Fantasy having a relationship with Twitch, Final Fantasy having a stronger relationship with its content creators, Final Fantasy doing giveaways with its community where the money is given out to people other than themselves or encourages people to go take part in growing portions of this community that can help them understand the game, feel welcome joining or staying in the game. This is a good thing. The frustration is that in the act of trying to create more inclusive communities for this select few, they have excluded a number of communities outside of this. They have excluded a number of people, and no matter how I cut this list, there are versions of this list that if it was my job would not include me. There are versions of this list that if it was my job would not include people on the list or would not include people off the list that are regularly suggested. If I had to spin up 50 versions of myself and each of them came up with a valid and fair and reasonable, above board, logical, and objectively measured or carefully considered version of this list, no matter how big that list is, 10, 20, 40, 100 names, I don't know that I'd publicly want to be associated with being the person who decided who was not on it. The person who got cut. The person whose invitation did not go out to the wedding or birthday party. The person who was told, we have a moment here to highlight the best things about this game, and you didn't make the cut. It's not the message you want to send, but it is a message that gets sent when people aren't included. If you've ever hosted a big birthday party or wedding, that list just seems to keep growing, and the bigger it gets, the harder it seems to be able to justify somebody not coming. I feel for whoever had to make this list. I think they're probably having a pretty rough day too. I'm very frustrated with how I feel. Just as much at me as I am at a stupid list. But tomorrow I'm going to wake up and be glad to be playing a game that I was glad when I woke up this morning. I'm going to play Guild Wars on a Friday, and on Monday I'm going to log back into Final Fantasy for the first 3.5 full streams of my week, this week 4, that I cover this game. I'm going to post on this game. It's going to be in the tags or the title or the description of the vast majority of the 14 posts that come out between here and Work to Game every single week. I'm going to tweet about this game. I'm going to share with my friends how I feel about this game. It's going to continue to monopolize my time and my energy. And I am really excited for Endwalker. And an event that hypes that and welcomes more people to enjoy the game more ways, especially while riding giant fat chocobos, is amazing. Go say thank you to a creator. Go tell somebody that you appreciate the impact they've had on your lives. Because if somebody had to go in and determine who impacted your life and made a list that was 20 or 30 or 40 names long, you would probably immediately think of 2 or 3 in your last 5, 7, 30 days that impacted you that for some reason weren't included. I think there's a lot of people in this community that got hurt by this. And I think a thank you and mentioning them in tweets toward Final Fantasy and publicly sharing them with people, sharing your stories about people that you've spent time with in game, sharing favorite moments, content creator or otherwise, could be a really positive thing to come out of this. This community has rallied behind charity events. This community has rallied behind creators, devs. This community has rallied to support people both in tragedy and success. This should be a good moment. This should be a great moment. And to let a list continue to drive my life like it's already taken 5 hours of it, to let it send me through a 5-hour emotional roller coaster that didn't need to exist, is not a long-term plan. Let's move forward. Let's support each other. Let's make sure that this is mostly centered on how fantastic Final Fantasy XIV is as a game. Not kinda, it just is.